Now joining the program, the second ESPN college hoops insider and expert and a play-by-play extraordinaire. He is Roxy Bernstein. Frankly, he calls multiple sports, but we're talking basketball. Roxy, welcome back to BYUSN. How are you this morning?
Spence, always a pleasure to join you guys. Doing okay. You know, it's been a hard days, but we're managing, and like I can't be depressed, because if I would be, then Bill would be mad at me, and that's just not the way his outlook on life was.
Yeah, I so appreciated your commentary, Roxy, in regard to Bill, and frankly, it's almost poetic and sad that as the Pac-12 goes away, we lose one of the Pac-12's legends in Bill Walton. And so I genuinely enjoyed what you had to say. How have you processed through not only losing your friend in Bill Walton, but saying goodbye to a conference that has meant so much to you as well?
The emotional roller coaster has been a ride, to say the least, the last few days. I've had time to prepare for both. I knew Bill was sick, and I was told last week that the end is probably sooner rather than later, unfortunately, that he was struggling. And so I had time to mentally prepare myself for that. But it still is not easy, as you guys know, even when you get the call and somebody called me Monday morning to tell me that Bill had passed. It's still as devastating as ever and crushing because of the larger-than-life figure that Bill was, and truly, truly in a class of one. And it's a lot similar to my feelings on the Pac-12, that I've known that was coming. We've known since last summer that at least this is the end of the Pac-12 as we know it. Oregon State, Washington State, they're going to move forward. They're going to still play football under the name Pac-12. But it's not going to be the same as we know. So I had an inkling that I was going to be the one that was signing off the Pac-12 network, doing the last ESPN broadcast of Pac-12 athletics. So I had time to prepare for both, yet they both were crushing when they happened. It's just the way life works.
Roxy, and I was thinking of Bill Walton, and he was fascinating. He was a fascinating person, but he loved to learn, and things fascinated him, and he often shared them during your broadcast. But for a guy like that, who just thought differently than so many else, then he passes and crosses over, and now he knows everything. He's got to be the happiest guy that there ever was.
You know, Dave, that actually is a very good way to look at it, right? Because he, as you talked about, he just had this insatiable appetite for knowledge. And he was so curious about people. And he loved talking to people, loved getting information and having these conversations and just informing himself. He was as well-read as anybody I've ever met in my life. And he just kept on at it. It never stopped. He was never satisfied. And nobody loved life more than Bill Walton. Nobody celebrated life more than Bill. And it didn't matter where he was. That was the place to be in the universe that particular moment. And whoever he was with, he had this way of making them feel like they were the most special person on the planet to him.
Well said. Roxy Bernstein with us on BYU Sports Nation. Everybody saw how charismatic and quirky and funny he was in these basketball broadcast moments. But you're touching on some things, Roxy, as you remember him, that maybe people didn't see. The fact that he was well-read and that he did make you feel like the most important person when you were having a conversation with him. What other things would you like people to know about Bill Walton that they don't see or didn't see on TV?
Well, first off, he was a genius. He really was. And what they saw on TV, Spence, Bill played dumb better than anybody I've ever met. But that also played into his genius. Like when he sat there and said to Dave or me, "What's your name again?" He knew exactly. And he was so disarming also to people when they would walk up to him. And like you might walk up to him, Spence, and go, "You're Spencer, right? I'm Bill with 2 L's. How are you?" And that was his way of breaking the ice. But he had so many interests, whether it was cycling, whether it was music. He was so well cultured. And it wasn't just the dead. Yeah, he's probably the most prominent deadhead that we know. but he had his affinity for Neil Young. Last night, Eddie Vedder at his Pearl Jam concert in Seattle paid tribute to Bill.
Amazing.
One of my best friends is Adam Duritz, lead singer of Counting Crows. I turned Bill into, as he called it, a crowhead. Brought him to the concert, and Bill had the time of his life. And Adam said to me, Bill might be my most favorite audience member ever. For the entire 2 hours, Bill is up dancing, having the time of his life. He's celebrated everywhere. And the connections that he had throughout the world were incredible. And just, oh yeah, I know him. I know him. Wait, what? How do you know? And Bill just had this way about him, and people just gravitated toward Bill because of the person that he was.
Roxy, as play-by-play guys, Spencer and I get to do, and you've done a lot, I've always wanted to ask you or Dave a question of, well, what's it like to try and broadcast a game with Bill Walton? The play-by-play guy is wired to just get the ball down the field and this and that, or the court, and then you got Bill. What was that like for you?
Dave, it was his battle within the game, right? He's not playing anymore. He needed that competition, even though we were teammates. It's almost as like I'm taking him back to his UCLA days, and he's competing against Swen Nader, who was his backup center. And Swen Nader was probably one of the top 5 centers in college basketball. But Swen couldn't see the court because of Bill. And Bill wasn't going to give up minutes to let Swen get on the court. And in a lot of ways, this was his battle. We never play, like, you guys have done games. You plan out with your analysts. You have your storylines. You will go over your open. Okay, what are the key factors? Why should people watch this game? Bill and I, or Bill and Dave, never talked 1 second about the broadcast before we were on the air. He wanted completely natural and organic. And even if I remotely approach the subject of anything, even if I'm asking him something innocuous like, hey, Bill, how's Lori doing, his wife? He'll look at me quizzically and, Roxy, save it for air. and I remember every time, though, within 30 seconds to going on air, Bill would always say the same thing to me. Roxy, thank you for your patience, and I'll try not to get you fired.
Great stuff. Roxy Bernstein of ESPN with us on BYU Sports Nation. Love talking about Bill Walton and celebrating his life. Roxy, before you go, we do want to discuss with you some things that are relevant at BYU right now, which is certainly the new head coach, Kevin Young, and what he has done since taking over for Mark Pope, specifically in the recruiting arena. He brings in an international star, a 5-star guy out of Spain who's a Russian, and this is just the latest in a string of big moves. What do you think of the current state of BYU basketball under their new head coach?
I was curious to see when Mark Pope left what was going to happen. You hear the rumblings about potentially Mark Madsen from my alma mater. Thankfully, we kept Mark Madsen. But you're wondering some of the names that were being floated out there. And then he kept hearing Kevin Young's name and his relationships in the NBA. And Miles Simon, my former broadcast partner at ESPN, who coached with Kevin last year for the Suns. And Miles and I actually had breakfast last week, and we were talking about Kevin. And Kevin, he said, is the most innovative offensive mind. He's one of the top offensive people he has ever been around.
Wow.
He ran the offense for the Phoenix Suns. He is brilliant in that regard. And it really impressed Miles with Kevin's ability to take advantage of a team's strengths. And I think that's what Mark Pope did so well last year. They were so fun to watch, so complex and so tough to prepare for. I'm anticipating BYU being the same. Now, they're probably going to do it differently when Kevin Young's going to put his stamp on things, but it's going to be free-flowing. They're going to get up and down, and he definitely has an idea in exactly knowing what he needs to do to be successful, and it's no secret why he was sought out by BYU to become the new head coach.
Roxy, final seconds. 4.5 wins for BYU football. You taking the over or the under?
I'm going over. I'm going over. I don't see it where they're going to have fewer than four or less wins. I'm thinking at minimum 5, potentially. They're a potential bowl team. So I'm taking the over. How's that?
We like that, and you got to go with your guy,
Yeah,
Jake
I know.
Retzloff,
I figured
right?
you would. I'm playing to my audience here.
Roxy,
We do like that.
Roxy, you got to go with your guy, Jake Retzloff, right? He might be the next great.
The Hebrew Hucker, let's go.
I love it. Hey, we appreciate the time, my friend. You're a gentleman, and certainly a great person to join us and talk, Bill. And I know it's been an emotional week for you, so we send you our best. Lots of love to you and your family, and can't wait to talk to you again soon.
I saved my stuff for next time about Bill's trip to Provo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll need some time for that one. We'll need some time.
Cannot wait. Thanks, Roxy.
You got it.